This is Global News at 6.
I don't use it anymore. Then I think I go around it.
You wouldn't use the DVP or the Gardiner?
When they ask money for it, no.
No, we are not happy.
But we think if they put a toll, the street's gonna be more busy because people don't want to use the highway, and then the street's gonna be more busy.
If it's going to make it less congested, yes.
Yeah, it depends how much too. If it's like the 407, no way.
Call it a drive into the unknown. You're looking at a live shot right now of the Don Valley Parkway. The mayor of Toronto says you should now have to pay to use the DVP and Gardiner. Proposing road tolls is one thing. Making them happen is quite another.
It's an extremely controversial subject inside and outside of Toronto. In fact, John Tory could well be gambling his political future on this idea.
Let's bring in Mark McAllister. So, Mark, I guess the battle over road tolls has already begun.
It is just starting at this point. This is the first time we've heard that John Tory, in fact, likes this idea. And so from this point forward, it's all about the battle at City Hall and what is exactly going to happen and the people that are going to step up against it.
If you use Toronto roads, you should pay for them. That's the basis for Mayor John Tory's decision to support tolls on the Gardiner and DVP. A move he now has to sell to residents not just in the city, but the entire GTA.
40% of the people who use those roads are from outside of the city of Toronto, have never and do not pay any of the cost of building and keeping them up.
Road tolls are being proposed as one of the ways for Toronto to raise $33 billion for infrastructure projects like roads and transit. A $2 toll every time a vehicle uses the roads, for example, would raise between $150 and $250 million a year for the city.
I am going to take this plan forward to City Council and to the people as the best and fairest way at this time in 2016 and beyond to collect the money we need.
And that will reduce congestion and speed up everyone's daily commute.
John Tory has said tolls are among the ways to avoid a significant increase in property taxes in Toronto, something he's vowed not to do. But does he have the support at City Hall he needs to move ahead? How do you think this goes over with Council?
I think Council now is at a point where we realize it costs money to run the city.
Councillor Giorgio Mammoliti is already an outspoken opponent and now plans on launching a grassroots campaign, including cartoon characters of he and John Tory in a boxing ring.
We've gone Tory tax cuckoo in this city. And I think that the people who are paying those taxes need to know how crazy it's become.
All while Tory is ready to go toe-to-toe.
I would certainly invite those who are opposed to the option that I've put forward to stand up and say how they're going to build the transit and how they're going to pay for it.
I asked Mammoliti point blank if he plans on running against John Tory the next time the race for mayor comes up. He said he wouldn't rule it out. As for these road tolls, there's going to be some time involved. There's another report that would have to come back in 2017. For them to actually implement anything would take at least 3 years. Alan.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. Now, before the city can even move ahead on those tolls, they need the backing of the province. And speaking this morning before the mayor's announcement, Transportation Minister Stephen Del Duca said he would carefully review any plan.
I think it's important to note that any plan in this regard that we would receive would require, of course, council support. But most importantly, I think it's really critical for all of us to remember that at every level of government, there's now a very clear understanding that we have to keep this region moving.
Del Duca says his government has no plans to add tolls to provincial highways like the 401. He added their focus right now is on high occupancy toll lanes like the one that was rolled out on the QEW in September.
For those of you who don't trust politicians, this is likely going to infuriate you. Here again is John Tory on road tolls when he first ran for mayor in 2003.
I don't really think I would treat that as anything that I'd want to be doing if I was mayor in any period of time in my first term, because I just don't see it as something people have paid for these roads. If we want more money for transit, it should come from the taxes people are paying today.
Back then, former Mayor David Miller said he would consider toll highways in Toronto, and the Tory camp responded with this website. Take a look. It's long been taken down, but our web team managed to find MillerHighwayRobbery.ca. It was an Old West-themed website that the Tory team made that accuses Miller of planning to pull his own, quote, stagecoach heist, by charging $1,200 a year for tolls on the Gardiner and DVP. Now, that was election time, though, right? We just learned south of the border, anything can be said on the campaign trail. Fine. But here's what Mayor John Tory said about road tolls at a town hall meeting on November 24th, 2015, exactly 1 year ago today.
And I've had a historically sort of consistent position of saying that I don't think we should be charging road tolls on roads that we already paid to build. And the Parkway and the Gardiner in their present form obviously constitute two roads like that. You will divert people off those roads onto residential streets. You should think very carefully, if you live here, about what the traffic impact might be, even of something as far away as the Don Valley Parkway. There are people who will take any steps to avoid paying the toll, and they'll end up driving down Mildenhall and Blythewood and Bayview and Lawrence, and you'll be upset about that because the traffic will be not safe for your children and so on.
Now, we invited John Tory to speak with us tonight about his policy reversal, but he declined. He's going to appear on our morning show tomorrow at 8:30 a.m.
That would go.
I love it. London, I used to study in England. You cannot go into central London without a toll. And that really allows the pedestrians in London to be able to do whatever they want. And it allows drivers to really think about, do I need a car? Do I want to spend this money?
I think the tolls are a great idea because I've driven on the DVP and the Gardiner. The congestion is too much.
Now, perhaps the biggest argument for or against tolls can be found elsewhere. Other cities use them, but have they worked? Let's bring in Sean O'Shea with that part of our story tonight. Sean.
Alan, Toronto would not be the first big city to take on tolls. It has worked elsewhere, but it takes a lot of political chutzpah to force people to pay and to sit in traffic, even though sitting in traffic is no fun either. When something is free, and then it's not, persuading people to pay isn't easy, especially if you're counting on getting re-elected.
This historically has been the third rail of municipal politics. You touch this issue and you get a shock. I think that's starting to change.
Congestion, delays, frustrations now add more expense.
Our government is not the best at spending our money. If drivers know that that money that they're paying for tolls is going directly to maintenance of the roads and funding transit projects in the future, I think people will be a little bit happier.
But drivers, taxpayers are skeptical about promises.
What my fear is that we are only speaking of raising revenue and thinking of it as a revenue generation tool rather than looking at the overall systematic impacts of this initiative.
Tolls have gone ahead elsewhere in big cities with success. Many are much more expensive. In London, for example, the congestion charge there is more than $19 and applies Monday through Friday through the business day. Brisbane charges a toll on the Legacy Way tunnel into the city. It sounds like a bargain at just under $5. And Stockholm's congestion tax amounts to just under $9 to make the trip to the city weekdays. Before the Swedes settled on a toll, they commissioned a poll.
And it was very unfavorable. By the time the trial was over, it was very popular and it was kept on because of the transportation benefits.
And in London, politicians beefed up public transit options beforehand.
Where not only that they implemented tolls, but at the same time they increased the supply of public transit significantly, like few hundred more buses the very same day they implemented a toll.
Politicians who've made what's usually an unpopular move risk their careers, but prolonged congestion is also a risk.
The time has come. It's a world-class solution for a world-class city.
And I think this is a defining moment for the city of Toronto.
We're southbound on the DVP right now, but there's a steady stream of cars that are northbound, and they're in traffic. It's a tough sell for something that is supposed to make things faster. If it works, then people are happy. Low burn if people have to sit in traffic and know that they're paying. It's a political hot potato that nobody has been prepared to take on, nobody at least, until now. Alan, back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Now, anyone who owns a car in the GTA knows just how expensive it can be. Insurance doesn't come cheap. And what about those loan or lease payments? Some may say $1 or $2 toll is no big deal, but when you add that to a variety of government taxes and fees faced by drivers, it really adds up. Let's look at the cost of running a 3-year-old Honda Civic. It begins with licensing. Your annual sticker costs $120. You have to renew your license every 5 years, currently carrying a fee of $90, so add $18 annually. Let's say you need $500 of maintenance for the year. The HST on that is $65. But governments really get into your wallet when it's time to put gas in the car. When the price at the pump is $1, 31 cents of that goes to various federal and provincial taxes. If you drive our Civic 18,000 kilometers, you'll pay $480 in fuel taxes over the year. Add the new Ontario carbon tax that comes into effect January 1st, that's another $66. Now add the John Tory road toll. For anyone who uses the DVP or Gardiner 5 days a week, you can add another $1,000 to the taxes and fees you're already paying. Your grand total? $1,749.
To put road tolls on the DVP, I think, is wrong. The province is making it impossible to live here, to have insurance. Hydro rates are out of control. And just to add one more thing is making it very difficult for any citizen in Ontario to live.
I don't agree with it just because we're already paying so much as it is, and to maintain a car and stuck in traffic with all the tolls is kind of ridiculous.
Now, the road toll was just one of many proposals city staff had in a report that was released today. Tory did address many of them. The mayor does approve a hotel tax, a levy that would also apply to Airbnb operators. It would raise $20 million a year. Tory did rule out raising property taxes above the rate of inflation, such as taxes that are not meant for large projects, that are meant rather. He also rejected proposals for a new parking levy and a return to the vehicle registration tax. And the mayor said he does not support the sale or partial sale of Toronto Hydro.